Hello and welcome. So, today we're tackling a really big question, one that so many people wonder about. How long does it actually take to get pregnant? You've probably heard all the usual answers, right? Give it 6 months, or it takes about a year. But the real story is, well, it's a whole lot more complex than that. So, let's get into what the numbers really say.
Okay, let's start with a little thought experiment. Imagine you decide you're ready to start a family, like right now. What's your gut feeling? How long do you think it should take? A month? Maybe 3? 6? Just get a number in your head, because I think you might be pretty surprised by what the biological reality actually looks like. The first number we really need to wrap our heads around is this one in 5. It's a pretty stark statistic, and it kind of sets the stage for everything else we're going to talk about today.
So, what is 1 in 5? Well, that's how many couples in the US will find themselves dealing with infertility when they try for their first baby. And what's really crucial here is that this number is going up. This isn't about some kind of personal failure, you know? It's a growing public health trend that we really need to understand.
And that brings us right into our first section, the new pregnancy reality. Let's break down the data and see what that journey to getting pregnant really looks like for most people these days.
This chart really tells a story in 2 acts. So the good news is that a big majority of people, we're talking 72%, will get pregnant within the first 6 months. But, and this is the really critical part, in the next 6 months, only another 13% will conceive. So after that first window, your chances really take a nosedive.
And this quote just perfectly captures the problem with the standard advice you get. Dr. Natalie Crawford, who is a leading voice in this field, points out that the common guideline is to wait a whole year before you even go get help. But if the odds drop so much after 6 months, that policy basically means, as she puts it, we're making you fail before we'll actually get you an evaluation. It's a system that, might not actually be working for people.
Okay, so why is this happening? To get to the bottom of that, we have to dive into our next section and decode the biology behind it all. What we're calling your personal fertility window. Let's get down to the basics of what drives fertility. I like this analogy. Think of it like women are born with all the eggs they'll ever have, and they're all stored in a kind of vault. The total number of eggs in that vault, that's your quantity. But what's just as important, maybe even more important, is the quality of those eggs. We're talking about their chromosomal and metabolic health. That's what's absolutely essential for a healthy pregnancy. So, this brings us to a key scientific term you ought to know: fecundability. It sounds super technical, but all it means is your statistical chance of getting pregnant in any single month that you're trying. You can think of it as your monthly lottery ticket, and well, the odds on that ticket change over time. And this slide shows you exactly how much it changes. So if you're under 30, your fecundability is about 25% each month. That's a 1 in 4 shot. Pretty good. But by age 30, it slips to 20%. By 35, it's already down to 12%. And by the time you're 38, that monthly chance is only 5%. This isn't some gentle slope, you guys. It's a series of pretty steep cliffs.
So, what do these steep drop-offs actually mean for your real-life plans? That brings us to our next section, the real timeline for building a family. And this is where the data starts to get really personal.
Let's put this into a real-world scenario. Let's say your goal is to have 3 kids, and you want a 90% chance of doing that without needing any medical help like IVF. Based on everything we've just seen, when do you think you need to start trying for that first baby? The answer is age 23. Yeah, that's the starting age for 90% shot at 3 kids. For 2 children, that age is 27, and for 1 child, it's 32. These numbers are usually pretty shocking, right? Because they are so much earlier than when most of us are ready, socially, financially, professionally. And that right there, that is the massive disconnect between our biology and modern life. Okay, I know, that data can feel a little heavy, but knowledge is power, and this isn't about scaring you, it's about empowering you. So let's shift gears and move to our final section: how you can actually actively boost your own odds. This right here is so powerful. If you just stop using birth control and kind of hope for the best, your chance of getting pregnant in that very first month is about 15%. But if you actively track your cycle and use fertility awareness methods, that chance more than doubles to 38%. That is a huge, huge difference, and it's something you have complete control over. So what does tracking even mean? Well, there are 3 main ways to do it. First, you can track your cervical mucus, which changes in a really predictable way as you get closer to ovulating.
Second, you can use those over-the-counter ovulation predictor kits, or OPKs, which actually detect the hormone surge that happens right before you ovulate. And third, you can track your basal body temperature, or BBT, which rises just a tiny bit right after you ovulate, confirming that it happened.
So why does tracking work so well? It's because it helps you zero in on this, the fertile window. See, an egg only lives for about 24 hours after it's released, but sperm can actually hang out and survive for up to 5 days. That means your best chances are in the 5 days leading up to ovulation and on ovulation day itself. Tracking is all about finding that 6-day sweet spot.
Now, timing is half the battle. The other half is egg quality. And you can actually influence that by creating what's called an anti-inflammatory environment in your body. This means focusing on things like whole foods, getting good quality sleep, finding ways to manage stress, getting regular but moderate exercise, and trying to limit your exposure to things like plastics that can mess with your hormones.
And on the flip side, it means you've got to actively avoid the things that cause inflammation. Look, this isn't rocket science for most of us, but it becomes critically important when you're trying to conceive. We're talking about cutting way back on added sugars, highly processed foods, any kind of smoking, and excessive alcohol. These things directly impact your metabolic health and, by extension, your fertility.
And that really brings us to our final thought, and maybe the most important one. All this data, it doesn't have to feel intimidating. In fact, it can be incredibly empowering. It all boils down to one simple question. Your body is constantly sending you signals about its fertility. The only real challenge, and honestly the biggest opportunity, is learning how to listen.